Good morning, guys. Welcome to Wake Up Well. As you know, this week, post Easter, post Resurrection Sunday, we've been looking at this really unique period of time between Jesus being raised to life again and him ascending to the Father before he sends the Holy Spirit, which is unbelievably good news for you and I. So for those of us who believe in Jesus, we now have the presence of the resurrected Jesus alive in us, and the same Spirit that rose Jesus from death to life is alive in us. But there's some really useful things that we can discover and learn in this unique period of time between Jesus being raised to life and him ascending to the Father and the Holy Spirit coming to us. And today we're going to look at an encounter that Peter and James and John and some of the other disciples had with the resurrected Jesus before he ascended to be with the Father. And we see it in John chapter 21, and it's verse 1 to 12. I'll summarize some of the story. So the chaps have gone back to Galilee, where it all began 3.5 years earlier, where they first met Jesus as he set out on his public ministry. And actually, to set the context for this, one of the first encounters, not the first, but one of the first encounters that Peter and some of these guys had with Jesus. Peter had been out on his boat. He was a fisherman in the Sea of Galilee, and he'd been fishing all night and caught nothing. And then this dude, Jesus, walking on the shore, comes along. He's been teaching, and he says to the guys, "Put out your nets for a catch." And they're like, "But we've caught nothing all night. We're fishermen, and we know what we're doing." But they say, "But come on, because you say so, we'll give it a go." And they give it a go, and this outrageous amount of fish fill the net, so much so that they have to get their buddies, James and John, and some of the others to come over in another boat and fill up with the amount that they've caught. Now, here they are. They have already met the resurrected Jesus, and in response to what he said, they've gone back to Galilee, and they've kind of gone back to their old way of life in a way, whilst they wait for Jesus to appear again. And so they're out. Peter has gone fishing for the night with some of his buddies again, and they catch nothing. And it says in verse 4, "Early in the morning, Jesus stands on the shore, but the disciples didn't recognize that it was Jesus." There was something about his physical appearance that was different, that they didn't recognize it was him. Now, that's really key, because I think Jesus did that deliberately. I'll show you why in just a moment. And he says, "Friends, haven't you caught any fish?" "Well, no." "Throw your net out on the right side of the boat and you'll find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." And as soon as Simon Peter heard him say, "It's the Lord," he wrapped his garment around him, for he'd taken it off, and he jumped into the water. As soon as he realized that he was Jesus, he was desperate. He let go of everything and he chased after Jesus. This was a command that they were familiar with and heard before. Put out your nets, even though you fished all night. And in doing so, there's a familiar miracle that happens. Now, I believe that Jesus was setting these guys up. They had walked with Jesus in the flesh physically, and they could see him with their eyes before him. But there was a time that was coming very shortly when the resurrected Jesus was going to ascend to the Father, and he was going to send his Spirit, which was incredibly good news, because where Jesus had just been restricted to being in one place at one time, now, by his Spirit, all those on the face of the planet who believe can have Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Jesus, alive within us. So we all have access to him all the time. But we can't physically see him with our eyes. I believe Jesus was setting these guys up, saying, "Look, there's a time coming very shortly where the very real nature and power and presence of who I am is going to be with you in just as real a way, but you're not going to be able to see it with your eyes. I want to train you to be alert to my presence. I want you to recognize my presence." And he does so by a familiar command and by familiar miracles. Friends, we don't get to see Jesus in the flesh in front of us with our physical eyes, but there is something about learning to become familiar with hearing his voice and with recognizing when he's at work around us. And when we do, being willing to throw everything in and jumping boat and swimming to shore to run after him wherever he's going. I want to ask us the question, how attentive are we to the presence of God? How familiar are we with his voice? And how able are we to recognize when he's at work right in front of us? I want to encourage you today. This is a beautiful invitation. Spend time cultivating an awareness in the secret place of what it is to be in the presence of God, so that as you go about your daily lives, you would become familiar with recognizing when he speaks and when he's at work, so we're ready to chase after him and to run after all that he's doing so that he can work in and through us with our yieldedness. I bless you today to have a hunger to get away with him, to become familiar with his voice and with his presence, so that you'd recognize him in all places, even when we can't see him with our eyes. Have a great day.